Hey guys, it's me Mr. 250 and welcome back to Virtue's Last Reward. Let's see what this memory card has on it. Why don't we? Luna and I exploded into the infirmary, nearly running into Alice, Clover, and Tin Myoji. Quark was there as well, of course, but he was just as we left him, asleep on the bed. I opened my mouth to retort, then thought better of it. If I really wanted people to start trusting each other, well, real change starts at home. As quickly as I could, I explained the second bomb in the memory card, and how we'd come to the infirmary in hopes that we could discover the contents of the ladder. We were trying to do that before you stopped us. Right. Just as Luna had said, there was a small slot under the screen, exactly the right size to fit a memory card. Within moments, the screen was filled with what appeared to be random letters. And I'm sure there's like a crossword puzzle in here somewhere. What is this?
22文字のアルファベットが6行か。
1行目、3行目、5行目と2行目、4行目、6行目は
Oh, I see that now.
でできてるみたいだけ
They
ど。
alternate. I see.
つまり1行目と2行目の繰り返しになっているということですね。
Yeah, actually that's what it is. Is this some kind of code or something? I'm almost positive. I'm almost positive this is a code. I mean, I see like the word one in there. And is there any other words I can read? Not really. But I see the word one, I see the word LED. I'm pretty sure that's not what we're supposed to be doing, but I mean, patterns are probably what we need in this.
他にデータは？
ないみたいです。
So, all we get is this gibberish. Hey, Alice. You haven't said anything for a while. What's up?
四つ葉、これを見て何か気づいたことはない？
気づいたこと？
研修の時に見たでしょ？これに似たものを。
Training?
これって。
やっと分かったみたいね。
Well, feel free to explain.
納得しとらんで、わしらにも教えんか。
Exactly. Don't be a jerk. Alice sighed and stretched her neck from side to side.
これは多分、とあるテロ組織の暗号表だと思うわ。
That sounds about right. They are terrorizing us with bombs.
テロ組織？クレイドールズっていう名前の組織。
So maybe Dio's planting these. That's an idea. Didn't Dio say he had a mission to do here? Maybe that's what it was. Mirror Jones. For some reason, I felt like I heard that name before.
何なんですか？そのクレイドールズって。世界を破滅に導こうとしている不穏な集団。
Or clay dolls, as they like to say it.
そいつらが使っているのがこの暗号表というわけか。
もちろんパターンはいくつもあるけど、これはそのうちの一つだと思うの。
じゃあ爆弾を仕掛けたのは
そのクレイドールズのメンバーってことになりますね。ええ、断言はできないけど、おそらく。
Wow. I've got a ton of questions for you. But let me start with this one. What the heck does that thing say?
そんなのわからないわよ。
Wow, that you're helpful.
わかるわけないでしょ。解読するためのキーがないんだから。完全にお手上げよ。
四つ葉もか？
アリスがわからないのに私がわかるわけないじゃん。
そうか。
Not much we can do then. We can come back to that code stuff later. I've got another question. Alice, Clover, who the heck are you? Why do you know about this code?
それは
You told me your job was to eliminate enemies of the state or something like that. Just what the heck kind of job is that? I think it's time you told us what you do.
悪いけどそれは言えないわ。
Thank goodness, because I feel like that would have been another long discussion that I would have had to skip through. Why not?
あなたが爆弾を仕掛けた犯人、クレイドールズのメンバーかもしれないからよ。
I suppose that's pretty true, isn't it? That's idiotic. Of course I'm
そう
not.
じゃないっていう保証なんてどこにもないでしょ。
Well,
敵に情報を与えるわけにはいかないのよ。
yeah. I'm not your enemy. I'm your ally. I'm your friend. I just want all of us to get out of here. Just please tell us. Please. We need to find out who did this so we can all escape. But we have too little information. We need your help. Fine. If you won't tell us about yourself, then just tell us about the Myrmidons. What else do you know about them?
ごめんなさい。
Before I could blink, she leapt up and ran out of the room. Wow. Hey, wait, Alice! I took off after her. Where you going, Alice? You wanna go chill out in here?
いつまでついてくるつもり？
Until you tell me what you know.
だったら四つ葉に聞けばよかったじゃない。
Clover?
あの子が私の仲間だってもう気づいてるんでしょ？だったら。
Well, yeah. I wanted to hear it from you.
なんでよ。
That's a good question. Remember the crew quarters? Or this garden? We got paired up for 2 separate rounds. That means I've spent more time here with you than anybody else. Maybe that's it. I guess I'm just curious about you.
何よそれ。
She spun around to hide it, but I caught a blush of red on her cheeks. We walked down the path to where it ended next to the pond. I stayed silent. Dang, that Sigma, he never replanted that plant, did he? Look at him. Look at that punk. Alice sat down on the bench. We gazed at the smooth surface of the pond for several long minutes before she began to speak.
憎んでないの？
What? Why?
私はあなたを殺そうとしたのよ。
What's a few deaths between friends? You mean in the AB game?
ええ。怖かったのよ、とても。突然こんなところに閉じ込められて、わけのわからないゲームをさせられて。爆弾のことだってそう。あれを見つけた時、冷静に話してたように聞こえたかもしれないけど、本当は怖くて仕方がなかったの。それに輪をかけるようにあのことが重なって。
What do you mean?
クオークが倒れたって聞いて、みんなで医務室に駆けつけた時のことよ。あの時私、みんなが何を言ってるのかまるでわからなくて。
Did you have the weird wiggly thing too?
周りのすべての光景がなんていうか早送りの映像の
You
よう
had the
に。
wiggly video.
そのうち自分が誰なのかもわからなくなって、まるで自分が自分じゃないようなそんな感覚にとらわれて。
That was probably the Radical Six.
ええ、多分そうだと思うわ。その後のことはよく覚えてないけど、とにかく医務室で目覚めた途端、たちまちあの時の恐怖が蘇ってきたの。だから私は一刻
So
も
you
早
made
く
a
脱出したい
crab
って
with your hand?
そう思って。
Look at that.
あなたが死ぬかもしれないなんて考えもしなかったわ。あなたが死ぬかどうかなんてどうでもよかったのよ。ほらね、 憎いでしょ。殺したくなった？私のこと。
What? Do what?
殺しなさいよ。
Hey, I think that's a little dramatic, don't you think? What the heck, Alice? I'm not gonna kill you. I don't even hate you.
嘘よ。一歩間違えば死ぬところだったのよ。
Come on, calm down. No one's killing anyone. Probably. Maybe. Maybe not. A single tear rolled down Alice's cheek. Then another and another, leaving shining lines across her face. When I reached out, I saw her tense just slightly. Slowly, I brushed my thumb across her cheek and off, taking her tears with it.
どうしてそんな風に優しくしてくれるの？なんだか亡くなった父のことを思い出す。
Oh boy, more story time with Alice. That's who you were after, right? The people who killed your dad?
ええ。
Did they have anything to do with the Myrmidons?
私が泣いたこと、四つ葉に黙っててくれる？
Yeah, sure. We probably won't be won't be alive long enough to tell her anyway. Ha, come on.
もしも黙っててくれるなら、口止め料として教えてあげるわ。クレイドールズのことも、それから私自身のことも。
Sure. My lips are sealed.
本当に？
What, crying? I don't remember any crying.
そう。それじゃあ聞かせてあげるわ。
Alice took a deep breath and began. My father is Egyptian, but my mother is French. They met while my mother was in Egypt on vacation, and married shortly thereafter. When I was 3, we all moved to the US. My father was a scientist, and his field was cloning. He was recruited by an American lab, which was why we moved. Both of my parents had used English around me from the time I was born, so I didn't have any problems adapting to life in the US. By my 9th birthday, we'd been there for 6 years. That was when it happened. In the middle of the day, my mother showed up at school. Is that your mother? Oh, your mother. Okay, I see your mother's on the left. Her eyes were red and puffy, but she didn't say anything to me on the drive home. When we arrived, there were several policemen there waiting for us. My father had always been a very punctual man, and when dinner time came and went with no sign of him, even I began to realize something terrible had happened. It wasn't until several years later that I finally learned the truth. My father's lab had been attacked by terrorists, and he had been kidnapped. For the rest of my childhood, my mother raised me by herself. I didn't realize it then, but it must have been incredibly difficult for her, as a single mother alone in a country where any relatives were a transatlantic flight away. She did her best not to let me see it, but every so often when she thought she was alone, the mask would fall away, and in every line of her face I could see exhaustion and loneliness. As much as I missed my father, it was those moments that made me wish more than anything that he'd never been taken. Fortunately, I was an excellent student, and did especially well in math. I earned a full-ride scholarship straight out of high school, and spent the next several years studying. After graduation, I took a job with the Department of Defense, hoping they might have the resources to help me look for my father. I was immediately assigned to the Special Office of Internal Security. Their purpose is to investigate, and sometimes deal with, terrorist organizations and the other serious threats to the state. I could tell my mother wasn't happy about my decision, but she chose to remain silent about it. Eventually I learned that the terrorist organization that had taken my father was none other than the Myrmidons, although at the time that name didn't mean anything to me. They were suspected of human cloning. Specifically, it was thought that they had been using cloning techniques to copy their most useful members and expand their ranks. The Myrmidons apparently believed that they could use cloning to create a new race of humans. Now, at last, I knew the reason for my father's abduction. The commander of the Myrmidons is a man named Left. We know his name and his gender, but not his appearance or age. The Myrmidons are closely associated with a cult known as Free the Soul. We believe that Free the Soul provides their funding. But trying to pin any kind of misdeeds on the cult's leader, a man named Brother, is like trying to nail Jello to a wall. Brother is supposed to be fairly advanced in years, and rumors say he's so old he can't even get out of bed. Unfortunately, his mind seems to be sharp as ever. At that point, I hit a wall. I knew the Myrmidons had been behind my father's kidnapping, but that was all I could learn about them. Then, one day, I got a tip that some of them were hiding in a building in the Nevada desert. I headed out immediately. Oh, and there you are, that's how you got to be here. On the way out there, my car had some engine trouble and stalled out. I was trying to decide what to do when an SUV appeared out of nowhere. I'll give you one guess who was behind the steering wheel. Clover. That was the first time we met. There were 4 other people in the car with her, and when I asked them what they were doing, I got what was just about the last answer I'd expected. They told me they'd been locked up inside of the very building I'd been on my way to investigate, and that they were currently in pursuit of the people who had kidnapped them in the first place. My priorities shifted very quickly. After a short discussion, I convinced them to allow me to come along. My hope was to find the people they were chasing, who I was certain were the Myrmidons. Myrmidons? I'm sure I've been saying it wrong this whole time. In the end, however, we were unable to track them down. In fact, I still don't know where they might have gone. Eventually, I took Clover and her companions to the SOIS headquarters. We decided that involving the police would only complicate things. After some questioning, it was determined that the people who had instigated this particular event were not connected to the Myrmidons. We did, however, discover that the mysterious disappearance and subsequent reappearance of several children 9 years prior was connected to Free the Soul. There was also a 6th person in the SUV, although they weren't riding in it per se. A middle-aged man who, I'll just call H for now, had been bound and placed in the trunk. According to the other 4, he had been behind the disappearance of the children 9 years ago. We also learned that his pharmaceutical company, a major player on the world stage, was effectively controlled by Free the Soul. More specifically, I suppose, H was a member of Free the Soul, and very committed to their cause. So, why had he kidnapped all those children? Apparently, it had been part of an experiment designed to test the ability of certain people to access what's called the morphogenic field. I don't imagine you've ever heard of it before, so I'll try and give you a quick rundown that we'll be skimming through. Resonate with other people, it's like telepathy, and, had heard of this particular ability before and actually used it in a number of investigations. I was shocked to learn that these experiments had been carried out by a member of Free the Soul. If that was the case, then Brother must have known about it. The thought of him discovering a way to control and harness that power was terrifying. It wasn't too long after the incident in Nevada that another tip about the Myrmidons, just grumble the whole time, crossed my desk. This time, it claimed that the Myrmidons intended to launch a large-scale biological terrorist attack. My bosses decided that we needed more agents to deal with a threat of that magnitude, and Clover was recruited. Because she'd been a test subject in H's experiment, we knew she had the ability to access the morphogenic field, and we wanted to put that ability to use. After several months of training, she was sent on her first mission. She would be tasked with the infiltration and investigation of a Myrmidon cloning lab. I was assigned to be your commanding officer. I hope that our investigation might also give me a lead on my father's whereabouts. At last, I had a chance to find out what had happened to him. I wouldn't let that chance pass me by. Perhaps that was what kept me from noticing the truth. The whole operation was a trap. We kinda got this from Clover's end. The lab was fake and Clover was captured. I got there as fast as I could, but the building was only an empty shell. All the conspirators who had pretended to be researchers and the like had already fled. I searched frantically for Clover until, at last, in a basement room I found her. She had been tied to a chair, but on the floor next to her was another body. Now, I don't think Clover mentioned that. It was my father. He looked as if he'd been dumped there, and when I got to him, his body was already cold. He was covered in dark, ugly bruises. It wasn't until later that I learned that he had died from ruptured organs and internal bleeding. They had beaten him to death. As soon as Clover had been captured, a Myrmidon in a mask had come to visit her. He said that unless she wanted to end up like my father, she would leave them alone and tell her masters at the SOIS to do the same. In retrospect, they must have known who I was and who my father was. That was why they'd killed him. Perhaps they thought that they were sending a message to me. Or that once he was gone, I'd lose my reason for chasing them. They were very, very wrong. I took Clover with me and left. I tried to console myself with the fact that I had at least been able to save her. Sometime later, I received a call from the coroner. He told me that there was something I needed to see. There in the morgue was my father, cold and pale on a steel table. I could barely stand to look at him, but the coroner insisted. On his arm were 2 rows of numbers, comprised of 8s and 9s. It took me a moment to recognize my father's handwriting. He had carved them into his own skin. Ow. On his chest was another message, but they were letters this time, not numbers. Not many, just enough to make short sentences. I love you, Alice. I broke down crying, right there in the morgue. They were the first tear I'd shed since the operation had started, and there was no stopping them. There would be no forgiveness. Not for the monsters who put my father through this. They destroyed my family. I would make them pay, even if I had to die to do it. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would avenge my father. It didn't take long to figure out that the numbers he'd written were latitude and longitude. They pointed to a chemical factory that had been disguised as an abandoned building. Further investigation revealed that it was the mother lode we had been looking for, the headquarters of the Myrmidons. I think my father must have known how things would turn out. Knowing he was going to die, he'd written the directions to our enemy's fortress on his own body. He'd sacrificed too much for me to waste this opportunity with recklessness. This time, our operation would succeed. This time, I wouldn't let my excitement put Clover or any of my other agents into danger. So, we took our time. We gathered information, we did our research, and we planned. Finally, we were ready. December 25th, 2028 was going to be the day we finally set foot inside the Myrmidon stronghold. But then, on the 22nd, only 3 days before the operation was scheduled to begin, a man in a gas mask appeared. So, you inhaled that gas, passed out, and woke up here in the AB room?
ええ。これがクレイドールズと私に関することのすべてよ。
So, some of what Clover said, but a bit more information tacked on that kind of reveals why Alice is the way she is.
もちろん細かい部分については端折ってるけど、だいたい
Yeah, thanks. She gave me a sad sort of smile and stood up.
さあ、戻りましょう。
Not yet. Your story explained a lot, but there's still one big question.
答え
Who here is a Mimerdin? Mimerdin? One of us planted the bombs. And, based off the code we found, it's pretty clear that that person is a Mimerdin.
ええ、そうね。
And I agree that we need to figure out who they are.
突き止めるって言っても、どうやって
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Do you have any clues?
思い当たること思い当たることね。あの暗号表を解読できれば、もしかしたら何かわかるかもしれないけど。
How can we do that?
だから言ったでしょ。そのためにはキーが必要なのよ。それがわからないことにはどうにも。
What's a key?
キーはキーよ。
Yeah, that was a dumb question.
解読するための鍵のこと。クレイドールズはその鍵として長い桁数の数字を使っていて。
Wait, a long string of numbers? Could that be... Oh! He said it doesn't matter because you don't have the key. Didn't he say that? I think he did. And there were numbers on that, weren't there? Crap. I don't know if I ever wrote these down. Let me write them down really quick. I think I wrote those down at some point, but I think I lost the paper that I wrote it on. And at the same time, I'd like to imagine that Sigma was just like, he's like, wait, numbers. 78153, 6... She's like, what are you doing? Calm down, I'm reading numbers.
なんなのよ、その数字は。
I was almost as surprised as she was. The numbers had just kind of appeared in my mind, and I was saying them before I knew what I was doing. Alice looked at me incredulously, and I stared back.
待って。今の数字、もう一回言ってもらえる？
Yeah.
それって、19844935-1を3乗した数じゃない。
I mean, you did say you were good at math, but...
だから、
Wow.
今シグマが言った25桁の数。それを素因数分解すると、19844935-1の3乗になるのよ。
You're talking about reducing an integer to a series of prime numbers that you multiply together to get it, right? Like, if you have 30, then you'd get 2 times 3 times 5, right?
そうよ。中学校で習ったでしょ？
So, you're saying that it's a prime? And if you multiply it by itself 3 times, that's what you get?
え
Don't tell me you just did all of that in your head.
え。いいえ、暗算よ。頭の中で計算したの。
What? No way. That's impossible.
言ったでしょ？数学は人よりも得意だって。
That's not better at math.
そういうあなただって、たった今膨大な桁数
That
の
is
数字
true.
をスラスラ
Sigma's
と
the
暗唱した
master
じゃ
of
ん。
remembering almost pointless things,
私に言わせれば、そっちの記憶力の方が驚異的だわ。
while at the same time having really selective memory.
ところで、今の25桁の数字、どこでした？
Internet? I didn't know what to say. What would I tell her? That it just came to me?
そう、言えないのね。
It kind of seems like we're the agent, doesn't
分か
it?
った？でもとにかく今の数字が例の暗号表を解読するためのキーになっていることは間違いないと思う。クレイドールズが素数をかけたものをキーとして使ってるってことは分かってるから。デタラメな25桁の数字、その3乗項が偶然素数になる確率なんて限りなくゼロに近いし。ってことは25桁の数字は何者かの手によって 作為的に生成された可能性が高いってことになるわ。
Could you explain that with small words?
だから要するに25桁の数字を素因数分解したもの、198449351の3乗が暗号を解くためのヒントになってるってこと。まだわからない？
Not at all.
さっき医務室で見た暗号表思い出してみて。モニターにはなんて出力されてた？
I think the first row was, and then just spit out a string of numbers because you memorized that.
2行目は？
Who does that? Seriously, what the heck? You memorized the whole thing, I think. Then they just repeat.
それにしてもやっぱりすごい記
Yeah,
憶
I
ね
know.
あなた。私たちの組織に欲しいぐらいだわ。
Well, keep going. How do we decode that?
今の文字列にさっきの素数198449351を当てはめてみるのよ。
How do we do that?
左上から順番に1文字目のアルファベット、9文字目のアルファベット、8文字目のアルファベッ
Oh, I
ト
see.
といった感じ。そうすれば多分解けると思うわ。
Sorry, I accidentally skipped that. Keep going till you get something. I ran over what she said in my head. The prime number Alice had given me. So, what would we get if we picked out letters like she'd explained? The first letter would be C from the top left. Then you'd move 9 to the right, which would give you O. Then 8 more to the right. Eventually we'd get a word. And that word was... Oh, dang it. Okay, hold on. Hold on, we're gonna have to do some work here. Actually, you know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna be busy for the next couple of days, so I actually need to make an extra episode of this. So we're gonna stop the first episode here. Hope you guys enjoyed. And we're gonna pick up right here. And guess I'll be doing some paperwork here. That'll be fun. Anyway, yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!